Right. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Honza Kubíček, and first several disclaimers. I made this presentation on my way here, so I have no idea how long this is going to take. Also, it has nothing to do with cryptography and code breaking and red teaming, but I honestly hope that you will take something from this. But on the other hand, I hope that I tell you absolutely nothing new here, because you should know a lot of this already. So, this is me. Currently, I work for Moneta Money Bank. Previously I worked for some consulting companies. Can I have a show of hands of FIMUNI students or alumni? Yes. Important stuff. I never ever worked in startups, and I've never done any ISO 27K implementation, which makes me a perfect speaker here. So, what are we going to address? What is the proper role of a cybersecurity unit in a modern large organization? Then I will spend most of the time on standards, the family of ISO 27K, and I will briefly mention NIST cybersecurity framework. I will outline some actions that are suitable for somebody who is running a small company and wants to address some security topics. And I have some horror stories, but do not keep your hopes up, because these are very well known. I will just illustrate some principles on them. So, first, let's set the stage. This should be this should be very familiar to you. What is the role of cybersecurity in the company? To take care of three aspects of every information asset, which is confidentiality, integrity, availability, or CIA trifecta. I presume that everyone is familiar with this. Is there anyone who has no idea what CIA trifecta is? Good, moving on. So, what actually is a role of cybersecurity unit in an organization? And I think here really the picture is worth 1,000 words. Because we are really looking for a delicate balance between how to make things secure and how to keep things usable. And by usable, I don't mean only user comfort, how easy it is to log into your network, how easy it is to get to your site. Do I have to, in Jaderná elektrárna, I pretty much have to strip down and put myself on the dosimeter or Geiger counter. So is it comfortable enough for the user? But another aspect of usability here is also the price tag. How long does it take to roll out? And hopefully we will not be pushing forward 24 locks on your bike. I think it's 23 or 24. I counted it twice and got different results, and then I got lazy. But this might be appropriate in some neighborhoods. But I think we can agree that this is usually an overkill. And if you go to your stakeholders, to your company's management to get budget for such security measures, you are super safe. You are super safe, and you deserve a beating you're gonna get, because this is not security done properly. Okay, so what helps us with securing the organizations? Standards enter the scene. ISO 27K is why it is so important, because it's a common ground in security industry. ISO 27K is the first standard or first family of standards that comes to mind when talking about information security. That's just how it is. Why is it important? Because it provides a common vocabulary. So when you talk about threats, when you talk about authentication, when you talk about various other common concepts, you can find them in 27000. It provides you with a comprehensive inventory of areas that you might want to take a look at. And not worry yourself too much about encryption only, for example, or only about network security. And it's a prevalent reference for any audit activity. So if you are going to get audited at some point in your company's life, either you are going to get acquired or you grow big enough to actually require a statutory audit or a cybersecurity audit, this is a reference they're going to use. This is a checklist that they're going to walk through and say, well, you didn't take care for this, you didn't take care of this. The family of 27K standards have 6 items, and nobody cares about 4 of those. The important ones are 2701 and 2702. And of those 2, the much more important is 2702. So let's talk about the first one first, 2701. I found this beautiful image, which guides you through implementation of information security management system, because that's the scope of ISO 27001. It basically tells you what information security management system is, how to handle information security in an organization in an organized and cyclical way. Well, I got confused. I mean, if the screen was big enough, you would notice that there's a step called Party On right after obtaining a certificate, and that's where I would probably start and finish. So I looked some more, and then I found a much better picture. This is from, and I mean, when it comes to standards, everyone loves pictures and checklists and comprehensive diagrams that include, I mean, even influence from outer space. But this one is very good because it shows 3 aspects that you need, or 3 areas that will enter your work or the scope of your activities when working in information security, and that's company governance and business objectives, because that steers what you do. I mean, they pay your ticket, so you need to worry about that. Then on the other side is compliance, because you need to practice or conduct business in the boundaries of the law. I think everyone heard term GDPR. It was a huge buzzword a couple years already. Some of you may work for organizations that are in scope for zákon o kybernetické bezpečnosti, the cybersecurity law. And there are many others that might give you an unpleasant surprise when it comes to security requirements. And in between is risk management, because what is actually looking for the delicate balance that we had on that slide with the 2 bikes, or 1 bike and 1 partial bike, is that you basically manage risk. You constantly weigh what is the actual potential loss against the cost of compensating measures. You consider whether the damage that you are likely to suffer is of reputational nature, if it's of loss of business, if it's business interruption, and how much would it cost to counter that risk. So basically 90% of your work in information security nowadays should be in risk management. And 2701 tells you that there's a system that you should build to be able to address that. Moving on. Now the important standard, ISO 27002. It evolved from some I think originally it was some good practice from Shell, the company that drills for oil. Then it became a British standard, and now it's an international ISO standard. And it comes from a simpler time where there was no scaling, or there was no measure how good or how secure you can be. But only you were secure or you were not. You had a firewall or you did not have a firewall. Nowadays it's much more complex, but 27.2 is still a very useful standard. It contains 35 control objectives. It costs 700 crowns, so I think it's very affordable nowadays, and it's worth reading. It really is, because for every control objective, it gives you some implementation guidance. So if it comes, and we'll get to that, but unfortunately, it doesn't tell you what is enough. It tells you that to have the control implemented somehow, you should follow some implementation guidance. Another negative for ISO 27.2 is it's very difficult to communicate to your stakeholders, to people that give you money, to people that give you budget. And this specific part of ISO 27K family doesn't deal with risks whatsoever. But still, it's a good inventory of security controls. It's divided into these areas, and some might come to you as more obvious than the others, because of course if you deal with information security or cybersecurity, I think it's completely fine to use these terms as synonyms nowadays. Of course you need to deal with access control. Of course you need to deal with cryptography. But I mean, human resources security doesn't come to mind when you think about information security. So that's why the ISO is really good to give you some comprehensive oversight of your information security. Because when we take an example of some control objectives, of course there are obvious ones. I just copy-pasted it from the standard. Network security management. Of course, it's a good idea to have a network segmented, right? That's not a rocket science. Of course, you need to somehow specify the cryptographic protocols that you that you are going to use. And of course, you need to grant some access rights to your users. But there are some that are not really obvious and that you will need to worry about sooner or later. For example, HR requirements. I mean, it's a part of information security that you should screen your potential employees or your potential service providers, as was beautifully demonstrated in the previous talk. I mean, is the guy cleaning my offices really just a cleaning lady, or is it a penetration tester on an assignment? To make it more easy, I mean, to screen your employees. I mean, if I take a guy on my team, I really prefer to know if he has a criminal record, if he has 7 execution titles in his name, if he is a gambler. These things really matter because they present a vulnerability in your organization. And I think the most not obvious but important is information security in supplier relationships. Because companies outsource a lot of stuff today. They use a lot of providers for services. I mean, pretty much everyone nowadays uses Amazon. Large companies use, for example, printing services that are completely outsourced. And I mean, to have some part of information processing done by somebody else, you should know whether they take care of their own security, or if it's just a bunch of guys in a garage with 2 laptops and some good cocaine. So, and this is basically why do I stress it out so much? Because it works twofold. If you are a startup, and I mean, sooner or later, you want to provide services to somebody. And unless you deal with the end user directly, where you have to comply with a different set of regulations, this is what your client is going to ask you. They're going to ask you how you handle security. And they are going to follow ISO 27002. They are going to ask you, how do you handle your access security? Do you use segregation, or do you enforce segregation of duties? Do you enforce strong passwords? Do you conduct regular audit on your access control? And it may sound obvious, but I really had a vendor who was about to close a couple €100,000 deal with a company I worked for at the time. And when I asked them how they handle access rights, they say, well, I just ask Joe and he gives me the access. And okay, and how do you handle your backup? What backup? We have laptops. I mean, if the electricity drops, then we'll run on batteries. That's our backup. So it was not a pleasant discussion afterwards. So that's why this is important, and that's what makes ISO 27002 important even for smaller companies. But I mentioned that ISO 27 is not very good for communicating information security to the stakeholders. It's really, it's a standard that has some legacy, and it's burdened by this legacy of previous development. So that's where the second standard that I wanted to talk about, but just briefly, or not standard, but framework, is NIST Cybersecurity Framework. Who is familiar with NIST Cybersecurity Framework?
I don't like it.
NIST Cybersecurity Framework is awesome! If you have to deal with ISO 27002, then you will find NIST Cybersecurity Framework awesome, because it very much facilitates the discussions with the management. Because unlike having them, or unlike you having to explain to them what network segmentation is, you operate in several domains or functions and categories, and you tell them, well, we do not have proper data security, and from moving it from reactive to repeatable, we need this much money. And they will tell you, well, it's perfectly fine for us to have data protection on reactive because it's not our business. Or they will tell you, okay, here's a fat check, and just go ahead and implement what you need. The setbacks of NIST, I will ask the gentleman in the back to give us later, because I am aware of a few. One of them, this maps very poorly to the actual countermeasures and tooling that you deploy. I mean, you need to buy, I don't know, an expensive license for vulnerability management, and this doesn't help you that much because you cannot map it to any of these. I mean, is it protective, detective, responsive? It's all of those. Okay, did I lose you already, or? Good. So, moving almost to the end of the presentation. Here are some key takeaways that if you are running a small shop, because this is, I wrote it with a small shop in mind that I never worked in, but this is something I wish the guys who started in a garage that would adopt, because it's going to make their lives a whole lot easier. So, start with a simple acceptable use policy, because security needs to be documented. It's not about how fast you crack the password only. It's also about that you have something in writing that you can rely on, that is repeatable, that is auditable, and that you can say, we agreed on this. So you don't have to have a full tree of security policies, but start with something easy. Start with specification what is okay and what is not okay to do in your company. Is it okay to just copy the source code to your to everyone's station? Is it okay to connect remotely from home or from Thailand? That sort of stuff. Make it simple, but put it in writing, and have it signed off on somebody who is in control of the money in the company. Do an asset inventory and identify what is really important, because this is going to eat you further down the line. You need to know the surface that you are protecting and what are your crown jewels. Formalize, even trivially. Put it in Wiki, put it in Slack. How some processes are done. How are user rights granted? Who is in charge of that? Who is responsible for that? Because not everyone who does it is responsible for it. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that there were times where everyone had admin rights to everything, but we can't do it nowadays. Another thing that is good to formalize is patch and vulnerability management, because again, going back to the discussion I had with the vendor, how do you do, and I mean, they were operating farms of servers. It was massive data processing project. And they said, I asked them, how do you handle patch and vulnerabilities? And they said, well, we have Windows Update on our machines. Why are you asking? And what I stress out here, data handling and separation between development, test, and production. Because this is easy to do, security doesn't scale very well. And if you start, if you build prototypes, if you work with a small set, it's easy to forget this in the beginning, but it's very difficult to introduce it later on. Be ready for incidents. Because incidents will happen. The cars are more secure every year, but yet, incidents happen on the roads. So you need to be ready and practice what happens, not if it happens, but when it happens, to handle the incident gracefully and in some predictable manner. Educate yourself on regulatory obligations. GDPR is the most trendy nowadays. If you work with credit cards, then PCI DSS. The things that they require are actually very good security requirements. I don't want to start an argument here, but I, for one, am very happy for GDPR legislation. And you should look for a 1-hour webcast on ISO 27002 and NIST cybersecurity framework, because it's gonna give you a lot. Right, horror stories. These are the things I just patched together, and each and every one of those is an illustration of a bad security practice. These are not things that happened to the companies that had done everything right. On the right, we have NotPetya and the cost. I think they will get the presentation afterwards. They will not get the presentation afterwards, so I will read it for you. Merck, or MSD, pharmaceutical company, their whole back office was offline for 2 weeks while they were reinstalling the machines. Why? Because they didn't do the proper patch management and network segmentation. T-Mobile. T-Mobile is also a very nice example of one common security pitfall. T-Mobile got fined because they didn't handle their endpoint security properly. The guy copied the data, the client data, on a USB stick and walked out. Also, they got a fine, although the guy didn't monetize it. I mean, he didn't, or as far as I know, the guy who did it didn't manage to sell it because the competitors of T-Mobile screwed him over and handed him over to the police. But the damage is there. The reputation damage is there, and T-Mobile had to pay 3.6 million crowns. I mean, it's peanuts for them, but still. I mean, I wouldn't want to go to my boss and tell him, well, due to security issues, we will pay extra 3.6 million this year. Komerční banka, this is an older one. I think this is like 2012. No, 2000. Yeah, it happened in 2012. Perfect example of improper handling of test and production data, because they put into test environment, they put live data, and then it leaked. I mean, they got laughable penalty for that, and yeah, and really the damage for them was not so big because the Czech banking clients are extremely conservative. But I mean, again, I wouldn't want to be the one explaining this to my boss. And Equifax, I think we are still waiting for a proper investigation on that one. But I think again it was vulnerable, old unpatched vulnerabilities. One more breach that I'll mention here: 2012 Target breach. I think 46 million credit card users' information was published, and the initial attack was done through a server of a third party. The server was there to control air conditioning in some, I think, in some storage. So, not proper verification of a supplier, because other servers of Target were very well patched, but this one was like a mental cheese. And second, improper network security, because I mean, who has air conditioning servicing on your common network? So these are the horror stories that I wanted to share with you. If we still have time, what I wanted, sorry. Yes. What I want to really point out here, that not everyone, of course, not everyone is an evil guy, but losses happen accidentally very much, even to the top players, because in the end, it's one guy who was not at very brief or for a very brief moment, not attentive enough and made a mistake, reused the password, didn't secure the network share. But security is it's a stacked deck against people, because security requires that we pay attention all the time and we are perfect. But we are not. We make mistakes, and that's why this comes crashing down on us. I have a bonus for you. I will talk about personal certifications. That's why I listed all the nice certifications that I used to have or have in the beginning. Because this is the question I get from the people I work with who are at the beginning of their career. Which certification I should get? What is most valuable for me? Certifications are nice. They are important for your self-confidence. Because, I mean, the exams are not super easy. Even if it's an open book, it's gonna take some capacity of you. So in the end, when you get a pass mark, you are proud of yourself. Self-promotion, because it increases your value on the market. I mean, some headhunters still look for candidates by using the certificate acronym in the search criteria. I mean, our headhunters do it too. It's very important if you or your company wants to participate in a tender for, especially for public sector, because it's a qualifying KO criteria. You need to. I mean, sometimes the tender documentation is so well written that you can just call the target company that you know and tell them, well, congratulations for arranging a tender. that you're going to win. But usually they have some criteria. You need to have 2 people with CISM certification on your team. So that's why certifications are important. About actual learning, not so much. I mean, there are some vendors like SANS, SAS, that have very expensive and very intensive trainings that are worth the money. But if you are inclined enough, you are able to get the information on your own through e-learning. There's nothing like secret sauce in their trainings. CISA and CISM, which are certifications issued by ISACA or CISSP, these are expensive certifications where you have to provide evidence that you worked for X years as somebody in charge of cybersecurity for a big company. But I've seen guys right out of the school waving around the certification. So it really doesn't give you that much of a learning, and it doesn't prove much. So mostly it's for tender participation and increasing your value on the market. Right. Who has seen this picture on some presentation before? I was hoping for fewer hands, but it's a... Come closer. There are the spaces here. But what I want to say in the end, as a closing remark, it's really important to bear in mind, because I mean, we love to tinker with things. We like to crack. We like to break things. But security is always a trade-off with cost and usability, because countermeasure. I mean, there is no such thing as unhackable system. It's just a question of how much do I have to spend to actually hack it. If I make my users who come to work every day going through 3 authentications with 2 factors and fingerprint and everything, I'm not doing my job right, because they are going to hate me and they are going to find creative shortcuts to actually bypass the security requirements. So, for adequate security, one must understand the risks. Do the risk analysis, do it frequently, and adjust your security requirements and countermeasures accordingly. ISO is the most important of the ISO 27K family. You don't have to worry about the rest. Maybe if you have time, you can read 27.1 and maybe 27.3, but it gives you an overview what you need to worry about when it comes to information security. And organizational and process measures are as important as technical ones, because you need to worry about the HR, you need to worry about segregation of duties. These are the things that you cannot enforce simply by technical measure. And with that, I thank you. Somebody please ask a question.
Yeah, I'd like to ask something. You mentioned that this was mainly for startups. When do you recommend applying those principles from ISO to 27002 to startups? Because there was a really nice featured article on Hacker News that was a CTO startup checklist for security, and there is nice checklist of things you should do in each stages of investment, like pre-seed, seed, Series A, and so on. When would you recommend doing formal stuff like this?
Now, the question was when to recommend implementing ISO 27 in which phase of a startup. I think you should go over the ISO 2702 in the very beginning, and then every half a year or something, and pick what's right for you, because it's not mandatory to beat yourself with the complete standard, and also the standard doesn't tell you what's good enough. It tells you that you should have this binary. So you go through the checklist and you say, you make a conscious decision. We will not worry ourselves about this at this moment. I cannot tell you which is like the minimum set. I think that if you want to sell your services to somebody who is bigger than 50 employees or who has some decent client base, then you need to be able to answer questions to each and every of security objectives that are there. Some of those come natural. Access control, network security, physical security, right? Because you have servers somewhere. Just go through the outliers that you usually, I mean, if it's a small shop and you don't worry and you know each other, you don't have to worry yourself about HR security, but just go through the checklist and say, this is something we do not need to worry about now.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Yes.
Do you have any experience how is it really works in real world? Like you were talking about the Joe, yeah? I want admin rights. You going to your admin and ask him for admin rights, like for example in government, yeah? It should work, this standard. So if you have any experience, really, how is it?
It works very well for legacy systems that are used by many people and have a team of administrators. It works much worse in systems that are so old that nobody understands how they work, and there's one guy who's in charge of it, and it runs on some yellow server, and it's more frequent than you would think, because that thing costs a lot of money, and the replacement would cost even more. So they say, well, why fix what isn't broken? So that works worse. And the worst case is something that you are familiar with the term shadow IT, right? It's something that people bring from the outside in rapid development. They introduce a new tool that didn't go through your complex processes, and they just use it because it works for them. They use it for, let's say Dropbox, right? They use Dropbox to exchange information with the marketing agency because they need to share large files, and it works for them just fine. And they do not worry that everyone has access to everything and it's absolutely not auditable, and or they use, God forbid, they have one account that they share. So as I said, I've seen it work very well in established systems that are audited on a regular basis and they have large support. And it works in the real world just fine. But when it comes to old systems, it's worse. And when it comes to things that are fresh and taken from the outside, adopted in agile development, that's a nightmare. And the people do not understand why we want some access management. So it's your role, in the role of information security, to explain that it's not okay that everyone can have access to everywhere.